In 1945, as Allied forces closed in on Japan, a group of scientists made a decision. Not to surrender, not to confess. To destroy the evidence. They burned the buildings to the ground. They killed the remaining prisoners. Then they walked out, went home, and resumed their lives as respected doctors and university professors. What they left behind was the record of crimes so severe that when American investigators uncovered the truth, they made a quiet calculation. This research is too valuable to prosecute. And for 40 years, officially, none of it happened. This is a factual, historical account of one of the most documented war crimes of the 20th century. Shiro Ishii was not a back-alley criminal. He was a decorated military physician obsessed with one idea: that biological weapons were the future of warfare. In 1925, the international community banned chemical and biological weapons. Most nations saw this as a moral boundary. Ishii saw it as proof they worked. He convinced the Japanese military to let him build the most advanced biological warfare research program in the world. They said yes. By 1936, the facility outside Harbin in occupied China covered 6 square kilometers, 150 buildings, its own railway line, a staff of over 3,000. At any given time, it held up to 600 prisoners. The experiments were systematic, documented, and peer-reviewed within the Japanese military medical establishment. Researchers published their findings. They gave presentations. They received promotions. Prisoners were deliberately infected with plague, cholera, typhoid, and anthrax. No treatment was given. Researchers observed, took notes, and waited. When prisoners could no longer provide useful observational data, they were subjected to surgical procedures without anesthesia. Medical records from the facility document these procedures in clinical detail. They were carried out in the name of scientific research. Frostbite experiments were conducted by systematically exposing prisoners to extreme cold conditions. The results were documented and later commended by military officials. Other experiments tested the physical limits of the human body under pressure, centrifugal force, and extreme deprivation of food and water. All results were recorded, filed, and distributed to the Japanese military medical establishment. By 1939, these experiments had produced 6 deployable biological weapons. Japanese aircraft dropped ceramic bombs filled with plague-infected fleas over Chinese cities. Wells were contaminated with cholera and typhoid. Historians estimate between 200,000 and 500,000 people died from Weapons Unit 731, designed and deployed. When Japan surrendered, Ishii gave one final order: destroy everything. The buildings burned. The prisoners were killed. The staff vanished back into civilian life. American investigators arrived weeks later. The lead investigator conducted interrogation after interrogation. All filtered through his translator, a man who had himself served in Unit 731, quietly steering every answer away from the truth. The investigator later admitted in a 1983 interview that he had been deceived. When a second investigator got closer to the truth, Japan stopped denying and made an offer. Hand over everything, the data, the findings, the results, in exchange for immunity from prosecution. American officials agreed. The data was transferred to Fort Detrick in Maryland, the center of America's biological warfare program. The scientists walked free. That same year, the United States sentenced 7 Nazi doctors to death at Nuremberg for conducting human experiments on prisoners. The United States wrote those rules and simultaneously granted immunity to the men who had done it on a far larger scale. Because the data was useful, no criminal charges were ever filed against Unit 731 personnel. No specific apology has ever been issued. In 2018, the Japanese government released the names of 3,607 Unit 731 members. Most of those men had already died of old age. Shiro Ishii died in 1959 in his own bed, never charged with a single crime. One researcher asked later in life whether it still haunted him. He looked at his hands and said, "Sometimes I remember what I have done with these hands. What's really scary is I don't have any nightmares about it." The Nuremberg trials happened because the Allies chose to prosecute. With Unit 731, they made the opposite choice. The research was taken. The scientists walked free. The files were sealed. And the question nobody has ever been made to answer is not just what Unit 731 did. It's who decides which atrocities get prosecuted and which ones get quietly filed away.